April 22nd, 2 Kings 4 and 5. 2 Kings 4. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant my husband is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yah, and the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, What should I do for you? Inform me, what do you have in the house? And she said, Your female servant has none at all in the house, except a pot of oil. And he said, Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not get a few. And when you come in, you shall... Sorry, 1 second. Rolling down my window. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all those vessels, and set aside the filled ones. So she went from him, and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. But he said to her, There is not another vessel. And the oil ceased. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, Go, sell the oil, and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman. She took a hold of him to eat some food. And it came to be, as often as he passed by, that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, Look, I know that this is a set-apart man of Elohim, who passes by us continually. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed there for him there, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room, and lay down there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite woman. So he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, Please say to her, Look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the sovereign, or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And so he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, About this appointed time next year, you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, man of Elohim, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had spoken to her. And the child grew, and it came to be on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to his servant, Take him to his mother. So he took him and brought him to his mother, and he sat on her knees till noon and died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim, and shut the door on him, and went out. And she called to her husband, and said, Please send me one of the young men, and one of the donkeys, so that I hurry to the man of Elohim, and return. And he said, Why are you going to him today? It is neither new moon, nor the Sabbath. And she said, It is well. And she saddled the donkey, and said to her servant, Drive, and go, do not slow down, except I speak to you. And she went, and came to the man of Elohim at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of Elohim saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, See, the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her, and say to her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with your child? And she answered, It is well. And she came to the man of Elohim at the hill, and stood, and she took hold of him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of Elohim said, Leave her alone, for her being is bitter in her, and Yah has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me. And she said, Did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, do not deceive me? And he said to Gehazi, gird up your loins, take my staff in your hand, and go. When you meet anyone, do not greet him. And when anyone greets you, do not answer him. And you shall lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as Yah lives, as your being lives, I do not leave you. And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was no voice, and there was no hearing. So we went back to meet him, and reported to him, the child has not awakened. And Elisha came into the house, and saw the child was dead, lying on his bed. And he went in, and shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to Yah. And he went up, and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned, and walked back and forth in the house. Then went up, and stretched himself out on him, and the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi, and said, call this Shunammite. So he called her, and she came in to him, and he said, pick up your son. Then she went in, and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and picked up her son, and went out. And Elisha returned to Gilgal, and the scarcity of food was in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said to his servant, put on a large pot, and cook stew for the sons of the prophets. And one went out to the field to gather plants, and found a wild vine, and gathered wild cucumbers from it, filling the skirt of his garment, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know what they were. They then served it to the man to eat. And it came to be, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out, and said, O man of Elohim, there is death in the pot. And they were unable to eat it. He said, then bring some flour. And he put it into the pot, and said, serve it to the people to eat. And there was no evil matter in the pot. Now a man came from Shalisha, and brought the man of Elohim bread and the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread, and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, give it to the people to eat. And the servant said, what? Do I set this before 100 men? And he said, give it to the people to eat. For thus says Yah, eat, and have some left over. And he set it before them, and they ate, and had some left over, according to the word of Yah. Loaves and fishes. 2 Kings 5. And Naaman, commander of the army of the sovereign of Aram, was a great man in the eyes of his master, and highly respected, because by him Yah had given deliverance to Aram. And he was a brave man, but leprous. And the Arameans had gone out on raids, and had brought back captive a young woman from the land of Israel. And she served the wife of Naaman. And she said to her mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Shamaron, then he would recover him of his leprosy. And Naaman went in and reported to his master, saying, thus and thus spoke the girl who is from the land of Israel. And the sovereign of Aram said, go, enter, and let me send a letter to the sovereign of Israel. And he went and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of garments. And he brought the letter to the sovereign of Israel, which said, and now, when this letter comes to you, see, I have sent Naaman my servant to you, so that you shall recover him of his leprosy. And it came to be, when the sovereign of Israel read the letter, that he tore his garments, and said, am I Elohim to kill and keep alive, that this man sends a man to me to recover him of his leprosy? For consider now, and see how he is seeking an occasion with me. And it came to be, when Elisha, the man of Elohim, heard that the sovereign of Israel had torn his garments, that he sent to the sovereign, saying, why have you torn your garments? please let him come to me, so that he knows there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, Go and you shall wash 7 times in the Jordan, that your flesh might be restored to you, and be clean. But Naaman became wroth, and went away, and said, See, I said to myself, he would certainly not come out to me, and stand and call on the name of Yah his Elohim, and would wave his hand over the place, and recover the leprosy. Oh, not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? And he turned and went away in a rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him, and said, My father, if the prophet had spoken to you a great matter, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he says to you, Wash and be clean? Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and said, See, now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth, except in Israel. And now please take a gift from your servant. But he said, As Yah lives, before whom I stand, I do not accept it. And he pressed on him to accept it, but he refused. Then Naaman said, If not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for no longer is your servant going to make an ascending offering, and slaughtering 2 other mighty ones, but to Yah. Yah grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter, when my master goes into the house of Ramon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the house of Ramon. When I bow down in the house of Ramon, Yah, please grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. And he said to him, Go in peace. And he went from him some distance. And Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, Look, my master has spared Naaman this Aramean, while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as Yah lives, I shall run after him, and take whatever from him. And Gehazi pursued Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him, and said, Is there peace? And he said, Peace. My master has sent me, saying, Look, even now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Please accept 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, and 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants, and they bore them ahead of him. And when he came to the high place, he took them from their hand, and stored them away in the house, and let the men go. And they went. And he went in, and stood before his master. And Elisha said to him, Where did you go, Gehazi? And he said, Your servant did not go anywhere. But he said to him, Did not my heart go with you, when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to accept silver, and to accept garments, and olive trees, and vineyards, and sheep and cattle, and male and female servants? So the leprosy of Naaman cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from him as leprous as snow.